have a huge chunk, you know, maybe it's going to be a week after. Call the Grand Forks County Commission meeting to order, April 21st, 2020. I'm just going to do my normal update with that. Please identify yourself prior to speaking. Please speak loudly. Do not use your speaker function on your phone. And then mute your phones unless you are speaking. And then once you're done speaking on the line here, and it makes it very difficult to hear. So. Okay, please note for the record that all commissioners are present, either in person or via the telephone. First item is the approval of the minutes. You've all received a copy of that. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Do we have a second?
I second that motion. This is Cindy.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next item then is the approval of the order of the agenda. Are there any changes that anyone would like to make?
Yes, I have a couple of amendments I'd like to make to the agenda.
Yes.
Right after the CBIC, this is Cindy, right after the CBIC update, I would like to have Human Resource Director Michelle Thiel talk about the COVID-19 pay recommendation. And then if we could add Haley Wongstead, State's Attorney, probably at 11B.
All right, so we have a motion to make an adjustment in the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Tom here.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. The agenda will be amended. Next item is the approval of the consent agenda. You all have seen or gotten copies of Bill's employee status changes, overtime, the March financial report, and other discussion. Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second then to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next item was Kari, Emergency Manager for Flood Outlook update. Kari, are you on the phone?
I am on the phone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
And we are in the process now of gathering damages. I need to have, by the close of business tonight, actually, our damage estimates from both the city and the county and township. I will forward them in. I can tell you quite honestly, we're not sure if we're going to get a declaration for this flood. But we have been assured by state CES that they will do all they can once everybody submits their stuff. So that's all I have in the way of water.
Okay, what's the dollar amount for the declaration? In order to give the
I believe, for us, I believe we need to meet or exceed 6 million.
Oh, okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions of Kari? Ms. Swanson, are you on the Yes, you are. Deb Swanson.
I am.
Welcome.
I'm on the telephone and I just want to check and make sure everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I did send you a very recent document and I apologize for the tardiness today. It was an extremely busy day at Public Health responding to COVID-19 and I want to give a shout out to, if you could let me know that I can send them the document, I'd be happy to do that. This document was updated today with information as of today with new cases, and I'll just go through each page with you. So if you go to the next page after this front page, there you can see our global cases, which is 2,500,000. Global deaths at 174,000. U.S. cases has now surpassed 804,000. U.S. deaths close to 40,000 at 39,083. And some good news, which is the U.S. recovered is at 73,987. If you go to the next page, a little bit of a trend down from a spike that we had earlier. 240 tests were completed today, which is down. I expect you to look through at your, as time allows you. The next slide shows North Dakota testing by county highlights. And as you can see, Grand Forks is in the top tier there with number of tests that have been completed at about 1,500 ago, but it was something less than 11. So you can see there's been a lot of activity. And the Grand Forks County case count is 22% of all in North Dakota. The next slide shows the COVID-19 cases as their source of exposure, and the largest number is community spread. There still are 79 cases under investigation, but community spread is determined after the case infected by age. Total cases, total recovered is in blue, total cases in red, excuse me. And then the small green bars, because we do have still a relatively low number of deaths in our state, are in the green bars, and they are all in the 50 and over age categories, with most of them in the 70 to 79 and 80. And then if you go to the next slide, it is hospitalizations by age. And once again, we have most of our hospitalizations in the older age group, but they are spread across all age groups, including some in the 0 to 9, some in the 10 to 19. Those are happening in Grand Forks County. And I can say with some fair certainty that most of what's happening in Grand Forks County, 2 have possible travel, 23 have close contact, 40 are community spread, and 66 are under investigation. And the reason we have so many under investigation is the screening event that was held at LM Wind Power was held on Thursday, and we're still receiving some of those cases. We received them all. They're being assigned to all of our contact tracers, but they haven't all been completed, and they will ultimately end up in some of those other categories. But there's a tremendous amount of work, or if they are maintaining isolation because they're an actual case. I think I heard today that there are over 200 people that we're daily monitoring. The next slide gives some information. I'm sure you all have read the media reports, so you know that we did a special testing event at LM Wind Power. We initially found out about the presence of the virus among their personnel on Tuesday of last week, and by Thursday, the National Guard was here to do a special testing event. It was quite an extraordinary event from a manpower and resource effort, and it was pulled together rather quickly. You can see on the left side there all the partners that were involved. And then the infographic of them were positive, with 11 of those being Minnesota residents. And 4 samples were rejected at the lab because they either leaked or they didn't travel well. And then you can see also down there, there's 29 area healthcare facilities that tested individuals. So in addition to the 99 were positive at the testing event, 29 were positive prior to that. Some of us are working really long hours, a lot of weekends and evenings because of the demands of contact tracing. We established a Joint Information Center, and Tom Ford has joined us on that group so that we have really good representation from major institutions that all have some type of a public information presence. We've had to make some quick decisions at times to respond to the mayor's weekly or 3 times weekly news conferences, but we try to get this group together at least once a week virtually and discuss common concerns and communication needs. And in all honesty, we could probably meet every day. I also wanted to highlight the current contact tracing efforts. We have 16 staff that are doing this work, and some of them have other responsibilities. And I guess if this information was updated, I wasn't sure that we would have it all on this slide, but it's I had somebody help me with this. 68 positive cases are currently assigned, and 226 close contacts are being monitored. And there you can see a little bit more detail. The good news is we've had 15 positive cases that have been released from isolation and 26 close contacts that have been released from quarantine, so they meet those definitions. And then another huge effort has been this coordination with the Department of Human Services on quarantine and isolation of people in the community who experience homelessness. And we started out with this as a city effort, and some of our effort was replicated by the county to address your needs as it relates to first responders and others. But what we are currently doing at the health department has been somewhat transitioned to the Department of Human Services and the centers that they have set up across the state. It includes some transportation to individuals who are either waiting for test results or they're quarantined and they don't have stable housing. And so we provide shelter and food, and case management is now being provided by the state. And then the last few slides are just information that's general. You can review those when you have time. All of our resources on here. Our hotline is on the next slide, and our hotline has been really busy for our work. And then if you go to the next couple slides, there's our hotline information, and then all of our resources. I really like to highlight the North Dakota Department of Health link. That's the very first one there, because that link really provides a great deal of information. They have a great frequently asked questions document there that's helpful.
Debbie, this is Cindy Peach calling, or Cindy Peach. I have a question. Obviously, you said that there are individuals who are to be quarantined for for the 14 days, and people are calling in reporting that those individuals are not gathering in larger amounts of 10, or I guess beyond that, those that have been told to be quarantined.
Their gatherings to their family and their household as much as possible. And then when in the workplace, they need to be doing social distancing from everyone and or wearing masks. And then we have the issue of people who are in quarantine because they're at risk of infection because of their work site, they're a close contact, they're waiting for testing results. And those are the individuals that we hear about because our state health officer has, and we would also have to, I believe, have an affidavit signed. So that would have to be knowledge firsthand in order to prosecute it. There are some other tools that we would like to use before this, and some of them are certainly our contact with individuals. And when we get, and that is enforceable. So there are some tools. We are also responding to community complaints, and we will contact law enforcement to the ability that they have to respond, they can. But keep in mind, a legal process takes time, and we're working on it pretty quickly. So public information is our best tool, and we just have to continue to reiterate to people how very important it is to stay home. This is a novel virus that none of us has any immunity to. And there isn't a vaccine available, and everyone is quarantined. So that's our best tool for public health, but we will certainly respond as we have the resources available to other concerns that are made known to us.
Thank you.
I apologize. But
oh, that's okay. Thank you very much. I do have one other question. Obviously, again, there is no stay-at-home order in the state of North Dakota. What about business places via phone, or they come in? But what if, what if people are going into a restaurant with a food license and they're, I'll admit, in some of the local communities around our county, people are gathering there not just to go in and purchase an item.
Opportunities that people cannot be gathering.
Thank
That
you.
is included in the governor's order.
Thank you. I will I'll just talk with Sheriff Schneider about it. Thank you very much.
Does anyone else?
Tom Paul's here.
Go ahead.
Right, Tom. Thank you. Deb, the thing that concerns me is, do you have enough resources and staff
To help us with our contact tracing. We know that there's going to be a few probably targeted testing events again in Grand Forks coming up. We don't have a lot of details about that, but we have some indications that they might be sites that are considered, and we don't have any resources to devote to those efforts other than maybe an incident commander, but we don't have public health nurses. We're trying to tap into other resources as they are available. We're using UND and NDSU MPH students to help us with our contact tracing, but it's really hard to get additional resources that understand what the work is and how to do it. And our situations change so frequently too. So the short answer is no, but the long answer is how to get them and get them in the right positions and how to pay people is a little bit more of a challenge.
Well, I think you need to maybe work with your group, and resources or money for you, at least short term.
Thank you. Appreciate the offer.
Debbie, this is Dave Engen. Got a question about L&M testing?
Yes, initially have plans to do that, but those decisions are made at the state health department level. And I'm hearing that there is some interest in coming back, but I can't confirm that. We know that with the high number of positive tests there's probably as possible will really help us understand where it's happening in the community and how we can contain it. I can't speak to whether how any future testing will be done at LM Wind Power, but I would say stay tuned. Those things happen rather quickly.
Sure. It strikes me though that with a hotspot like that, you definitely, not you, but the health department should definitely test all the rest of the employees, because we might have twice the number of positives there, and those numbers would need to be in the state calculation of the number of positives when the decisions are being made to open. So it seems to me that's the logical place. They should really test all the rest of them if you have any influence on getting that done. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree that we need to have them in the state numbers, and the governor has set an ambitious agenda of doing 10,000 tests. And what our resources are, Grand Forks Public Health Department doesn't do any testing, and we don't decide how the supplies are allocated. But we do know that more testing is needed just to determine what the presence of the disease is in our community. And we're concerned about hotspot employers, especially employers that have people continuing to work in conditions that might place them at risk. And
The social gatherings and things like that, when we have nice weather, and even when we haven't had such nice weather, but, you know, we see children out playing with, doing what children do, playing with their friends outside. And it just seems like even at social gatherings, you know, the parents might be distancing and whatnot, but the children are in and out, you know, amongst the adults and with their friends doing, again, what children do, and we want them to. But how can we get a message out to the parents that are there restrictions or things that they should be doing with their children when the children are outside playing with their friends? I mean, should they be wearing a mask? Should they be
children
social
shouldn't be
distancing?
playing with their friends right now,
Pardon?
in all honesty. Children shouldn't be playing with their friends right now.
And I don't think that that people recognize that always, because, well, I know down in Riverside Park, they're all out playing together. You know, I know what you're saying and I agree, but somehow, how can we get that message out to parents?
I think the schools are certainly trying to do that through their online distance education, and they're constantly sending messages to parents. I can ask them to amplify that. We do have some county schools that are part of our pandemic planning committee as well, and we can certainly ensure that they message to all families that they have an ability to communicate with. That's a concern. We don't want children playing on playgrounds because of the potential for carriage of the disease on commonly situation, but these are all the things that we have to do to prevent the spread of the disease.
Okay, well, thank you. It's a concern because I see it, you know, pretty often, and just was wondering how we could possibly get that message out to families. I just want to thank you so very much for all that you folks and you and your team are doing. It does not go unrecognized, that's for sure. And
Thank you.
yes, and appreciate your updates.
Thank you. I'm going to hop off now, but feel free to email me if you have questions.
Thank you. Take care. Stay safe. Okay, the next item is CBIC, and so Koya Tompkins, I believe you're on the phone. Are you not, Koya?
I'm here. Can everyone hear me okay?
Can you speak just a little louder, please?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. I just wanted to thank everybody for having me come to the meeting today. I initially reached out to Deb for the budget meeting, thinking that was supposed to be to the full commission, but I guess it's just to the finance team. So I'll be coming back with a more deliberate request on the budget, but I did want to just take this opportunity to just give you a couple of updates. Most of them are COVID related because I set out to get on the agenda well before COVID. But now we have kind of a mixture of updates, just most of them COVID related, but a couple other things that we're really proud of that we just wanted a chance to kind of share with you. But I just wanted to first start off by the area. I moved here in July, and I had my first introduction to the commission in January when we were in the middle of a bit of a special mode that we're literally all in this together. So you can go to the next slide. So I just wanted to start off by saying that, you know, regardless of what's happening around us, we've basically taken a 40-year business model and flipped it on its head to setting about and tackling our Safer Tomorrows roadmap, which, as many of you know, is ways to eradicate violence in Grand Forks County. So naturally, given where we're at with everything that Ms. Swanson just shared with us, you know, we're concerned about our victims who are probably more at risk now, given where we're at. So we're as motivated as ever to do our part to protect our employees and protect our clients. But we're very committed to safety and education. And I'll just, if you want to go to the next slide, I'll just kind of dive into something. So very immediately, after a couple days before actually March 13th, we created a crisis management team. It's a cross-functional team that's designed to just look at everything operational, HR across the board. And we also we currently communicate with our partners and our donors and our hosts through the phone. And it's actually had some benefits. I was talking to a therapist last week, and she said, you know, it was really great. I had this really great Zoom call with the client, and this is a client who would have otherwise had to cancel because of transportation and childcare issues. But now that she had the option of Zoom, it actually created an opportunity. So that's been kind of a unique learning, and we're going to continue to keep an eye on that. So taking some of that on for parents ending with our having to go to work. So we have kind of a mixed bag there. Currently, we have a little capacity, and then we have these unique ways of delivering service. We're always cognizant of privacy and safety for our clients. But so far, it's working really well. Our staff are coming into the office, using social distancing, and then calling our clients via Zoom. A virtual approach. We actually hosted our first video Zoom meeting with our group of offenders for the ladies, and that's gone pretty well. We have not done that for the men yet, but we're looking at options for that. Of course, safety is a big concern there. Rural outreach through Thompson in the video presentation, and we continue to do several recording sessions for our area schools. In spite of COVID, these are just some of the data points from 2019. So we reached almost 2,800 direct service clients and 15,000 education. And then the next slide is just some success we've had around domestic violence courts. We did do several surveys with participants. 100% of them said they had a positive experience, and 93% of them said they felt that judges truly cared about their success. Agencies were not in the program. And so definitely some success around that. That we'd love to see continue as soon as the court currently, domestic violence court is suspended through July. And Green Dot program is something that we're really passionate about, particularly now. This is a bystander intervention program. We really are encouraging people to just check in with their neighbors, see how they're doing, because really it's kind of a community approach to violence. The 3 Ds are the different ways that you can intervene if you observe violence. Of course, with most of us staying home now, that's less likely, but we are hoping that the community can help us with this, because we're seeing this significant spike yet. So we're kind of hoping it's not the calm before the storm. That is what happened during the flood. We're still available. We distributed several flyers to pharmacies and grocery stores last week. We'll continue to do everything we can on social media just to let everyone know that even though we're not open to the public, we are open to serving virtually. And then the last slide is just kind of a fun initiative where she actually went abroad to Myanmar, which is formerly Burma, and did some training over there to help advocates across in Asia learn how to serve and provide service. It was a very humbling experience. We were grateful to have her representing us in that. So, and that happened in January of this year. So she was gone for 2 weeks. Pretty segregated and had a lot of learning around that. So those are the updates I have for today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyhow, does anyone have questions for Koya? Comments? Okay, hearing none, I want to thank you, Koya, for your report. We always appreciate, periodic updates and getting those from you. And then also, I just want to say thank you for and thank you for all that you do, and look forward, I guess, to seeing you soon. So.
Yes, I hope so. Amazing how much you miss, like, just having lunch or coffee.
I know, that people contact.
And we'll continue to focus on our rural outreach. It was a goal before COVID, and it's certainly a goal now. So.
Well, for me, I think it's real important. I think the other commissioners would say the very same thing, with having you here right in our city, the public has the benefit of having you locally, but I think with our rural communities, I mean, they're no different out there than we are here, and there's a need, and probably sometimes maybe even more, just because of the isolation that you have in some of the more rural communities. So we do appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you letting me have some time on the agenda. I know it's an incredibly turbulent time for everybody, and I certainly appreciate all you're doing to serve and support us. It means a lot.
Thank you. Well, your report was real upbeat, so we appreciate that. So that's what we needed. So take care and stay safe. I shouldn't say never mind. I have the Michelle next, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. We'll get you next though. Okay, Michelle.
Good afternoon, Chairman Knopf and commissioners. Hopefully this can be fairly brief. We've had a lot of conversation about what's called the Families First Coronavirus Response Act that was set out by the Commission. I've been working closely with Haley Lumstead to understand the regulations as well as to understand the guidance and direction.
Please enter your PIN followed by the pound or hash. If you do not know your PIN, please enter pound or hash.
And so we've been working on understanding regulations as well as there's been some guidance and some clarity provided by the Department of Labor. So what I'd like to discuss briefly today is two options that we would like a decision made by the Commission on how to move forward as far as coordination of pay with pieces of the Family First Act that provides partial pay to employees. The Commission has the ability to choose whichever, requiring them to utilize accrued sick and vacation time if they're unable to work anything related to the COVID-19. The two options that we have, one would be to continue to utilize pay of the FFCRA 2/3 pay options that there are for very specific situations. The second option that we can choose would be to have employees utilize accrued and available leave. They would have the choice. They could either take just 2/3 pay, or they could use accrued and available leave to bring themselves up to as close to 100% as possible. Each of the options have some positives. Each of the options have some negatives. These were put forth to the department heads, and it was pretty much a 50-50 split. So I'm bringing it to I'd like to open it up for any questions that we have.
Okay, does anyone have questions for Michelle? As it relates to the document or the information she's provided?
This is Cindy. I'd just like to make a couple of comments. I don't think it's questions. Michelle and I have talked about this before. I will probably, well, let me do this. I want to move that we continue with.
And I think it's the best solution for our employees at this time.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
So option one. is-
Madam Chair.
I couldn't hear a lot of what you said, and with no documents, I'm just relying on our prior discussion, I guess, of continuing it. So that's all.
Can I just ask a question? We all got,
From HR, the next thing I think was the voting by mail after the engineer. Am I missing something?
The document was actually
Well, it would be in a-
emailed.
It would be in a separate, it would be in the documents that, Debbie sent out, I believe.
No.
no,
To all the commissioners
When was it sent?
yesterday morning.
Okay. I didn't better for the documents, but I didn't even, if I'd have seen that item on the agenda, I would have gone looking, I guess. So that's all right.
And Commissioner Ross, you were asking clarification. So
Right.
option number one
Right.
would be continuing to utilize paid administrative leave.
Okay.
And option two would have been allowing the employee to choose whether or not to use vacation or sick.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions, comments? I have,
Well, Madam Chair, I just wanted to comment that, in discussing this with HR, I guess if we did look at a different option than one, my concern would be, if in county employees maybe were new, they wouldn't have that time built up. Or if a county employee had taken medical leave via, whether it be, a maternity leave, or if there was extended family leave due to an illness in their family, I would be concerned that it wouldn't be fair if they had used their built up time for something FMLA related. My concern would be that they would get 2/3 of their pay, but then would have to utilize their accrued pay or their accrued time to cover the other third. So I would be reluctant to go with any other option than option one.
thank you. Any other comments? I have a really dumb question. But, okay, so with to allow the 100% of pay for our staff, but you made a comment that just kind of made me wonder, so we're giving that and they don't have to use vacation or sick leave.
Correct.
So my question is, and
they are not available to work, they would be using their
Your
vacation
input
time.
is invalid.
They would
they would
They
have
would
to
use their vacation time. This is only if they are unable to telework and they don't have any work because their job duties, like if you're a buildings and grounds person, you can't work from home. So,
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other comments for discussion? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion and a second to go with option one of the proposed future options, I guess, that we go with, and that would be to continue with the paying staff at 100% of the administrative pay at 100%.
Yeah. And the one piece I should have mentioned to begin with, none of these pay options would be in place for human service zone employees. They have to follow the pay options from the state. So it's all qualified employees would get the administrative pay.
So what's different for the zone employees
The zone employees the state is handling it in option two.
in option two for them? So we would be different than for,
Correct.
okay.
County employees, their pay is directed by the state merit system.
Okay, so we're going to have two, if we went with option one, which is the motion.
What we have been doing.
The second. So if we go with that, then, and we have been paying it different all
Correct.
along?
Yes, from the very beginning, the human service.
And I've been told, and what I understand is that they are not county employees and they're not state employees, they're zone employees. What is a zone employee? Not county, not state.
And Sarah Stolt from the state stated that they are county employees. That's the direction state HR has been given, is that they fall under county policies except for their pay. Their pay has to fall under the state. So, but it's, if we were to go with option one, it would be no different than it's being done right now.
It's somewhat like it was before they became zone. I mean, they were county employees, but we had to follow state,
Correct.
their rules, the merit system rules. Correct. So, all staff outside of the zone employees.
For all qualified
For
staff.
all, yes. So, all in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
I,
Opposed? Motion, can we somehow ever get that clarified? I mean, if you're hearing one thing and you're hearing another? Can we get that in writing from someone?
We have tried.
All right. Okay, the next item then is Nick, highway engineer.
Hello. Fortunately, I wasn't on the phone yet, but just from our perspective, the water is mostly down and we're starting repairs. Most of our damage is for county systems up on County Road 18 again. It's going to be very similar to last year. But I think countywide it might be a little bit, it'll be a little less than last year. Just judging from all the townships, and we're collecting numbers and getting preliminary assessments yet, but it should be countywide, it should be a little less than last year, but still fairly substantial. Another item, and the reason I wasn't on earlier, I got sidetracked with budgeting, and our current revenue projections is that our highway distribution fund is going to be 15% less than what we had budgeted. That's a lot. That's a tough pill to swallow, but I think we figured out some places we can cut and still keep things going. Due to gas tax revenue, people in the state aren't driving as much as they were. They're purchasing less gas. The state's collecting less gas tax. Hopefully it picks up and revenue comes in more than they're projecting. But so for next year, we're also projecting some more revenues too. So our highway distribution fund 2150 is going to be substantially lower than it has been in the past. Any questions with that?
Any questions of Nick? So with the prairie dog monies, doesn't sound like we should be planning for much there either.
Yeah, that's for sure. The prairie dog money is a function of, I don't think we would get that money. So at this point, we can scratch our $5 million we hopefully be getting next year. Yeah. So yeah, that's a real kick in the teeth, but we're still okay.
Good, glad to hear that.
Yeah.
We have to be.
What's that?
I said we have to be.
Exactly. Yeah, when you do.
We'll find a way.
I've been starting to lay out plans on how to, on our department. Our department has to do a lot of work in planning and laying out the projects and, planning on bidding or how we're going to process all this work. And, I've put the brakes on a lot of it because I just don't think it's coming in. If it comes, then we'll deal with it. Zero, it's just not going to come in. So.
Okay.
But yeah, the one item I hear in the last couple of weeks, and we got one bid. It was from ADS, and everything was right this time. They had their bid on. It was very straightforward. Actually, the prices were the same as last year. They were the only bid, and with that, I'd like the I'd like to accept that bid for the year for us. So that would be my request.
Okay, you've heard Nick's recommendation. Do I have a motion?
Second, Dave.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the motion to accept the bid. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Nick. Thank you. Okay, so next we have finance and tax. Ms. Nelson?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I scanned in a letter about the election on page 38. I do have some on April 21st with a posted paid return envelope by the Secretary of State. So today is April 21st. Actually, April 21st is the day they're going to start. They're going to start with the largest counties first. So I can't say for sure that ours are going out today, but they are going out in the next couple of days. Ballots must be sent out April 30th. So April 30th is 40 days prior to the election passed. Any applications that we had 30th, we would send out on that very first day. This year might be a little bit different. We might not send them out on April 30th, and I'll get into that more later. Applications will be received every day up until the election. Ballots will be sent out and voted ballots will be returned. Applications must be filed so that they can be retrieved when the voter ballot is returned. So once we have processed those applications, we have to file them in a way that we can easily give them back out again. That's what I was saying there. The voted ballot and application must be filed together. So when they come back in, absentees ever processed by my office is 5,635, and that was November 28th. It's a lot. We will have 4 or 5 times that to deal with, I anticipate. I was originally thinking I would need my staff to return next week along with 20 additional county, city, park, and school employees to begin the absentee process. I contacted the city, the school, the park, and they all agreed to help out in any way they could. But I received a proposal from Sea Change. Sea Change is the company that produces our ballots for us. And they said they could insert our ballots into our envelopes and mail those out. And I'm like, that's a great idea. I don't then need to have my 20 people come in here when we're in the middle of a COVID pandemic and have them work on inserting these ballots. What I found out though is that they can't do every single one. And initially it was, they can only do one run. So I could only do my largest group and let them do it. And then I have to do all the rest. But they have now said they'll do up to 3 runs for us. So that's better than one. It's not all though. So it costs $1.75 each plus $750 setup fee and a $500 processing fee for uploading the voter data file per mailing occurrence. So that would be the 3 mailings that I get to choose from. I would guess, I'll do my 3 mailings close to the beginning of the process, but we don't know how these all are going to come in. I'm going to, I would guess we're going to have more that first mailing than we did all of 2018. Them at their cost, which is estimated at about 45 cents, which is less than what we can do it for ourselves. So you understand there are essentially 5 steps in the absentee process. One is the mailing of the applications, which is going to be done by the Secretary of State. The second step would be the applications come back to my office and we process those. We file those, and then the third process would be inserting the ballots into the envelopes and mailing those back to the voter. Now that part is partly going to be done by Sea Change. The rest is going to be done by us. So I may need more help at some point. I don't know exactly. We'll see how it goes. And then the fourth step is the ballots come back. We have to process that in the computer, and then we have to pull out the application with the ballot, and we file that. And then the last step would be the executive order has given us 5 additional business days to process, or the 5 days prior to the election to process those applications or those ballots that have come back by the district chairs and me and my staff. We will not be the ones, me and my staff will not be the ones, the machines that will count the ballots. And that will be on throughout the process when we're opening them, but we will not get the results until 7. So that's a good thing, that we won't have to do all of them. They will do a large, my staff will still be able to work remotely, but they will have to make a daily trip in to pick up the mail, the applications that come in, and they'll take them home and they will process them at home. Once we get that first large batch, we will do an upload to Sea Change, and then they will insert and mail our ballots for us. This is an ever evolving. I would think that maybe the first meeting in May, I may have to ask for help, but I'm not asking for any help at this point.
Thank you.
Also, there is now a secure ballot drop box that's been installed in our parking ramp. So if you want to see what that looks like, I do have it on our website too, so you can see where it's at. And so people can drop off their ballots either in the mail on the day before the election or in that ballot box on election day. Have any questions?
Okay, anyone have any questions for Ms. Nelson?
The ballot box that's in the, is that when they are redoing the repairs in that?
And it's okay there,
Okay,
right?
All right.
Mr. Ford?
That's correct, Debbie, Madam Chair, Commissioner.
Any other comments for Ms. Nelson? We had discussed this, and Fargo is using Sea Change as well.
Yes, actually, Sea Change is only doing Fargo and Grand Forks, nobody else. They don't have the capacity to do everybody. So,
And you can imagine just 70,000 from us. Wow. Okay, thank you for your report. Next item is Director of Administration. What do you have for us, sir?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Just what you have is the contract between Grand Forks County and ICS. It contracts ICS to perform those repairs and construction to the Grand Forks County ramp. Mr. Grzeszewski and I did have a pre-construction meeting with ICS representatives and Perry Johnson from AE2S. It's a good meeting. They're going to start work on May 4th. I have let all the department heads know that the work will start May 4th. If you have fleet in the ramp, please have it out by May 1st. I've also, because I'm working remotely, I don't have access to the entire listserv. I did ask those department heads to share the details with all of their employees. It's a good time to do it because most of our employees are working remotely right now. So, but I've been in contact with Debbie's staff as well of getting notifications out to our downtown residents and other tenants that work will be going on. The city of Grand Forks is willing to help us out and provide parking options in their corporate ramp as well. And so things will proceed. So we're happy to finally get this project up and running. So that's all I have, Madam Chair, is asking for chair's signature on the contract.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, there's also a notice to proceed, Tom. in addition to the notice of award. That needs
Oh,
the chair's
mhm.
signature.
Yes, that's true, Debbie, thank you.
So we have two items, and if we have a motion, it's a notice to proceed, and then also a notice.
Or maybe it's the contract. I mean, it starts off saying that, but I think it's the actual contract that needs the chair's
It is.
signature. Yeah,
Okay,
That's,
so,
that's correct,
the
yep.
notice to
All right.
proceed in the contract.
okay, so that would require chair's signature. So, any questions for Mr. Ford? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I would move approval. This is Cindy.
Thank you.
Tom will second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, further discussion? I have one question. When's it going to be finished?
That's a very good question, Madam Chair. Estimated completion is the end of September.
All right, thank you, sir.
So hopefully the ramp is completely open and ready to go by October 1st.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? Motion carried.
That's all I have, ma'am.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next item is State's Attorney. Ms. Wamstead, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Madam Chair, members of the commission, the first item I have to address is the asset forfeiture memorandum of understanding. If you recall, we discussed a number of meetings ago, some conditions under this memorandum of understanding. In the last legislative session, there was an amendment to a statute which required us to establish a board to review any requests for expenditures of assets that were seized by law enforcement and forfeited by the court. At the last meeting when we discussed this, the board determined the amount that this asset forfeiture board were under. Anything above that amount would have to be brought to the full commission. Also at the last meeting, the commission decided who was appointed to be Commissioner Engen at this time, as well as myself in my role as State's Attorney and Sheriff Schneider. And so essentially this memorandum of understanding memorializes the conditions and the authorization that the commission previously decided at a meeting. So I would ask for the chair's signature on this document.
Okay, you've heard Ms. Wamstead's request. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion
Is
to,
there any further discussion or question? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item I have is regarding a non-congregate shelter. If you recall at the last commission meeting, as well as the jail and the sheriff's department have been working together to establish a non-congregate shelter to be utilized for first responders, emergency management, and correctional employees. There's a specific request for proposal process that we have to follow in the hopes that FEMA will offer reimbursement for any expenses we might incur for this need. And so you'll see some of the documents that I had sent you kind of outlines that process, but specifically I would request a motion for the chair's signature on the county's emergency order document.
Okay, you've heard Ms. Wamstead's request. Do I have a motion?
Move approval of the emergency order for the chair to sign.
Okay, and do I have a second?
This is Cindy. I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the chair signature on the emergency order. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. I have one other item by way of update to provide to the commission. I was asked by the attorney for the water board just to update the commission on a decision that was made at their last meeting. They made a order to close the facilities at the Larimore Dam and the Fortville Dam recreational facilities, as well as any campsites at those facilities through May 31st, with the option to extend that closure to be determined at a later date, depending on the status of the COVID-19 situation. And they just asked that the commission be updated on their decision on that matter.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Was that advertised at all, so people know about those closures?
Did you hear the question?
Because I think there's been,
Good.
It's posted, I know.
well, it's posted, but I think there was some inquiries from people that wanted to camp at the Larimore site, and I didn't know anything about it other than what just came up now, so.
Mr. Ross, members of the commission, it's my understanding that the order that was issued by the water board includes that it would be posted. The order that was passed would be posted at each site at various locations. In addition, the managers of the Larimore Dam campground and the Fortville Dam campground were ordered to contact any persons having campsite reservations that may be affected by this order, and to establish a method of prorating their rental for the campsite in the event that the closure interrupts their use of the campsite.
So people know ahead of time in this community that that has taken place, rather than showing up at the site and finding out that they can't go in there?
Sure, I think that's absolutely reasonable. I can bring that information back to Dan Gosted, who is the attorney for the water board, and I'm sure they'd be open to that suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for us?
No, that is all I have. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much. Okay, the next item is committee reports. Commissioner Ross?
I have MPO tomorrow at noon by TV or computer, IT.
Okay.
So we'll see how.
Meeting. At that meeting, Mr. Holber gave us an update. 51 people are working remotely at home. 20 are working in the office. They're doing screening of staff. Public health is doing that when they come into the office. For individuals that either come into the office or working at home, they're making PPE equipment available to them. Also, recently when Deb Swanson talked about the homeless population that the state is dealing with, housing and food and various things, the social services is actually doing the intake for that. And so they're involved. There are 3 staff members that are involved with that, working with the state. Things are going well at the social services department, and I think that's kudos to those staff and IT and those that have helped them get set up. It's going forward with a few glitches, but they've been able to quickly fix those, so it's a positive. Tomorrow is the airport authority meeting Thursday morning, and again, that's online, like Bob said. Also in the zone, back to the zone meeting, we were informed that the zone plan was actually due in June of this year, and there had been plans by state DHS that they were going to be sending out fiscal, HR, various people from the state to work with each zone and that isn't going to take place at this time. So I believe the zone directors had a conference call this morning, and they're going to be asking the governor for an extension on that zone plan date or submission date, because they want to make sure that they get the information from DHS when they do finally come out to visit. And the last thing is just, I want to do a thank you to all the county staff, because things have continued to go on without a hitch, from, payroll, HR, IT, to billing. Emergency services has done an exceptional job, public health, roads and bridges, they've done a good job getting out there and making sure that signage was put up when flooding was happening, and now they're already taking them back down and assessing what the damages were. I think as a whole, the entire county has been very quick to respond to not only our flood issues, but our COVID-19 issues. And I just want to thank everybody for all of their hard work. And oftentimes during a pandemic, people just kind of want to cocoon with their families and not be able to help the public. And I don't think that's been the case with our county staff. So I would say on behalf of the entire commission, all of our staff need a big thank you for everything they've done to continue the operations for the county. The sheriff's department included, everybody. I don't want to miss anybody. So thank you very much for everything that everyone has done.
Thank you, Ms. Page. I'm sure that all the commissioners agreed with that. I mean, I don't know how we can ever thank staff enough and let them know how really appreciated they are for all that they have done. So thank you. Commissioner Falk?
We had another meeting on the fire protection out in Grand Sky, and we're kind of moving in a little bit different direction, but we're making some progress, and I guess that's all we've got right now.
Okay. Commissioner Amen?
Yes, I was on the conference call with Mr. Ford and Commissioner Fall concerning Grand Sky, but that's the only thing from this last couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you. And I don't have my calendar here, and I didn't write down, it seems everything cancels, but I'm busier than I've ever been, so I have nothing to report. Next item then is unfinished business, and it looks like we don't have any correspondence. We have a letter, a notice notice of public hearing on a tax incentive in the form of payment in lieu of taxes, and this, I believe, came from the city. And this is for Bakken Land Enterprises on behalf of Pro Transport, who are requesting a declining property tax. So there is a meeting on May 4th, I think, at the city. And will that be something then that will come before us as well? We'll just stop at the city. So they're just asking for comments if anybody wants.
It's just FYI, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And then the next item is correspondence with respect to 3 bridges, existing bridges that need improvements. And so this is just notice of that, and they're requesting comments as well. If we have any thoughts on that. The next item is correspondence relating to, and this came from civil engineers, and this one is relating to some road work. They're proposing, the city's proposing road work. They're going to input if we have anything that we'd like to add. And the last then is a copy of, that came out, $1,932.48. So that's nice. Okay, anything else to come before the commission? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed, motion carried. Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks.
Stay safe, thank you.
Well,